Welcome everybody. This is the year of the R1 and the R5 Mark II. Let me tell you why and let me tell you my thoughts. Hello, if you're new to my channel, this is Magnus back with another video, and it's been a while. It's been a long while. Honestly, I needed some rest and I needed to refocus my energies as to what I wanted to do with not only this channel, but also with my time. Lately it's been good, and we want to keep growing in 2024, so I'm going to continue to pop out videos as I always do, and of course growing this community with you guys. So welcome. If you're new here, definitely consider subscribing. I talk about cameras in terms for video, and I like to focus on mirrorless cameras specifically so that you can use them to your best of abilities when you're trying to make a video. But today we're talking about some camera news. Now, Canon rumors and a bunch of different camera sites and websites have been talking about the R1, Canon EOS R1, a camera that's been rumored to be Canon's next flagship camera for years. Canon themselves said the R3, which is a really high-end beast of a mirrorless camera for Canon, has been up there for quite a long time, but has not been considered to be the flagship since the 1DX Mark III. Now, the 1DX Mark III came out early 2020, like around first quarter. But then that same year, the Canon R5 was announced and released, which was Canon's really next leap into the mirrorless game. Sure, we got the Canon EOS R and we got the EOS RP, which was kind of like a stepping stone experiment for Canon to release a good camera. But then we got the R5, which had 8K video, it had a 45 megapixel sensor. It was an amazing step in the mirrorless lineup for Canon themselves. But if you look at the Canon track record, Canon in 2012, early, they released their flagship, the Canon 1DX. Later that same year, they released the 5D Mark III. 4 years later, Canon released the 1DX Mark II. A few months later that year, we got the 5D Mark IV. Now you see a pattern here. 4 years later, you're getting these cameras released at the same time. It's Canon's flagship and then the Canon's 5D series, which was a perfect photography camera that not only did stills very well and exceptionally for like portrait photographers and different other types of photography, that was really an all-in-one system because it also did video very well. But it was good for wedding photography as well. Fast forward to 2020, that's 4 years later, Canon releases the 1DX Mark III every 4 years, but then they didn't release another 5D camera. I'm actually filming with the 5D Mark IV as we speak, released in 2016, still looks good. And I'm filming in 1080p, but nonetheless. That same year, rather than releasing the 5D Mark V, Canon released the Canon R5, which is amazing, but it's kind of fit in that line of 5 series of cameras. But instead of the 5D, it's the R5. Still keep that 5 in there, but we just got to switch the D and the R. DR, Doctor, Dominican Republic. I don't know. I'm going crazy here. But as you can see, it seems that this camera replaced the 5 series, but we never really got a replacement of the 1DX series. The R3 was like a stepping stone, but it wasn't the flagship. It was not the flagship. The flagship is finally coming. 4 years later, as the pattern has shown, Canon releases their flagship every 4 years. So now it's 2024. It's been 4 years since the release of the 1DX Mark III. And that is why you're going to see the Canon R1. Now, the Canon EOS R1, honestly, has had a lot of rumored specs, from 65 megapixels to not so many megapixels to, dual CF Express card readers, which quite honestly makes sense, and a bunch of other features. However, what is actually going to be in this camera? Now, again, speculating, but let's look at the patterns of the past and see if Canon's going to follow that line or change it up a little bit, because competition is really going next level. A9 Mark III, I'm looking at you. So, it's been rumored to have up to 65 megapixels and maybe not so much. I honestly think it's not going to have that many megapixels. It's not going to do 8K video. Nothing like that. It's going to be comparable to the 1DX Mark III, honestly, I believe, except it might introduce potentially a global shutter, kind of competing with that A9 Mark III. Maybe. And if it doesn't have a global shutter, it's still going to be a very, very fast readout speed. They're going to definitely remove the mirror because it's going to be the first mirrorless flagship for Canon. So they're going to put out a lot of the stops. It's going to be fast readout speed. It's going to be able to sync with really insanely fast shutter speeds with a good flash sync. The video, it's going to, of course, have raw video, good heat dissipation, strong battery life. What's really going to be next level is going to be some of the features in this camera. I think that their autofocus is going to be next level. I think there's going to be some sort of AI learning incorporated into this flagship. And if we're lucky, a new menu system that finally gets rid of the classic menu system that has honestly been around for way too long, 10, 15 years. This menu system has aged and we need something new. Will it have the ability to lock your camera? Not sure. Camera manufacturers really haven't done that. But at the very least, it's going to have some sort of communication, broadband, maybe some interface with social media websites. That could be a real game changer so that you don't have to go from camera to another device just to do anything like that. But you'll be able to work with your files a lot quicker. And that would be awesome. That's only possible with a new menu system. And that's what I'm really hoping for this camera. But you're going to have insanely fast readout speeds, insanely fast speed when it comes to taking photos. It's going to do maybe 6K at 60 or 120 frames per second video, which would be really nice. And it's going to be raw video, raw slow motion video, which would be pretty nice. And that's kind of what I feel it's going to do. Maybe a lot of other bells and whistles, but I think that software is really going to push it next level with a new processor they're going to put in it. So that's going to be the R1. All guesses in my opinion. The R1 will definitely not have as high megapixels because if you look at the past, the 1DX series versus the 5D series, the 5D series always had a higher megapixel count than the 1D series because the 1D series really focused on speed of taking photos and reliability. And of course, lasting a long time because it has a built-in battery grid. Now, where you're going to get some video features that are next level is going to be the R5 Mark II. R5 Mark II might actually push the limits of what can be done. We might get 8K video again, oversampled 8K video. Now that's what I think is going to have a 65 megapixel sensor. But I also think that it's going to be comparable when it comes to the readout speeds of the R1, but it's not going to be as fast. You're obviously going to get next level autofocus, just like the R1 is going to have. That's going to really, really never miss your focus, which Canon's dual pixel autofocus has been next level for quite some time. I don't believe they're going to put the quad pixel autofocus in there just yet. I don't believe the R5 Mark II is going to have a global shutter either, but they're going to push it next level by increasing the dynamic range and saying, hey, we get next level dynamic range and sacrificing the global shutter because here's what you get. And the readout speed is so fast, it almost doesn't make a difference for you to have a global shutter or not. That's what I think they're going to do with that camera. 8K 120 frames per second, no overheating. 4K at potentially 240 frames per second. Like, I don't need a faster frames per second, honestly, because I even barely use the 4K 120. I'm more in the 4K 60. Occasionally, I might do some slow-mo 4K 120, but that's honestly rare. But to get 240 frames per second at 4K, and it's going to be probably pixel bin. I don't believe it's going to downsample from the very large sensor. We're going to have more than a 45 megapixel sensor. It'll probably be 65, but maybe at 60 frames per second and at 30 frames per second, you're going to have it downsampled from the very large sensor, like probably a 65 megapixels. So it's like 9K, 9K, close to 10K, and it's going to be really good. But we'll see. And that is going to be probably released or announced and released like around July, August time period. By September, we're going to see both the R1 and the R5 Mark II already available or out of stock because we don't know how how that's going to go. But that's what you're getting from me. That's what I'm praying for. That's what I want. And that's what I'm hoping for. And thank you for being patient with me between the releases of my videos. You'll still get a lot more coming from me. I just got to produce a lot of content. I'm constantly here editing. I have not given up. It was just some time that I needed for myself. But if you stick around, I'll deliver more content for you in 2024. And as always, you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. See you guys real soon. In fact, see you next time.